Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. It's Cynicalex, and today I want to talk to you guys about why I hate your favorite character. Now, it's not actually about why I hate your specific character, but why it is that I generally dislike most characters in the game, or that I tend to exaggerate how average some characters are, and I tend to group most of the characters into the game into like an average power level of about probably 5 or 6 out of 10 based on my hyperbolic statements, and then I rate some characters very, very highly and then some characters very, very lowly, kind of like a bell curve. So I wanted to explain that, but to explain that I need to explain a couple of other ideas as well. So I hope that you guys can strap in for kind of a bit of a theoretical video and a bit of theoretical talking and kind of talking about the history of the game and the future of the game. If you aren't familiar with the game, if you just started playing, some of these ideas might go over your head, and I apologize for that, but in order to explain everything detail by detail, this video would be way too long, and I really don't want to do that. So I apologize in advance if you can't keep up, but for those of you that can, I encourage you to come along this ride with me. So in order to talk about why I hate your favorite character, we have to talk about where the game was a year ago and where the game is now. So if you don't know, or if you haven't been playing the game for a year or more, then you won't be familiar with the World Boss update. And the World Boss update was the update that brought us Proxima, Black Giant, or Black Dwarf, Super Giant, stuff like that. That was released in March of last year, in 2016. So it's about 11 months ago, to this day. And that game mode brought a lot of changes to the game. And that game mode brought a lot of changes to the game because of what it required. Of course, it required a very high power level in terms of characters' overall damage, because the bosses have high HP and stuff like that. But it also required a lot of skill from players. A lot of technical skill, a lot of timing, a lot of iframe management, time management, positioning, and it was a very taxing and a very challenging game mode. I struggled mightily with World Boss when it first came out. It took me over a month before I could get more than one World Boss kill per day. And that was with a full roster. I had almost every single character at 6 stars at that time. And I was ready to go. The only kill that I could get reliably every single day, except for Infinity Thanos, of course, was with a Loki team. So you can see that the game has progressed a lot since then. Thank you for the Dimension Rift. Since that time. Now it is not uncommon to see the wackiest of teams beating World Boss, and you can see the truth in that based on the target kill count there. 300,000. Over 300,000. That number, when World Boss first came out, heck, even before Sharon Rogers came out, that number was not even half of what it is now after months of World Boss, because it was very, very difficult. But the rewards for World Boss were very, very enticing. You got this black antimatter and these Chaos Nordstones that would let you unlock these very, very powerful characters. And then once you unlock them, it would be even easier for you to get additional kills. So the skill cap, or the skill requisite that the World Bosses asked of you, rewarded the best skilled players and punished everyone else who was either new at the game or didn't have enough skill, myself included at the beginning, to get World Boss kills consistently and to get enough of them for you to build up enough resources fast enough. That's not the case anymore. Now it's not uncommon for someone to start the game, and within a month, between new player bonuses and login events and stuff like that, to develop characters like Carnage, Sharon Rogers, and another tier 2 immune passive character, and get 3 or 4 World Boss kills in a month. To start playing the game and be able to get a handful of World Boss kills per day in a month is fantastic. And I'm not trying to say that it's a bad thing, but I'm trying to say that Netmarble had to do something to speed up the process by which new players caught up to veterans, and that required changing and shifting the focus of the game. And that's really where my answer lies for why I don't like your favorite character. So let me explain this a little bit further. I feel like the game has shifted now in terms of what it's requiring and what the top level characters have, and what was required or what was considered best at the time. So at the time of World Boss, when it was first introduced, Loki was the best character in the game. Loki was the best character in the game because Loki had the two most important aspects that you needed: survivability with the energy barrier and consistent DPS. I'm going to specifically say consistent DPS because Loki does not have burst DPS. He does not deal a high amount of damage all of a sudden, which is what burst DPS is. At the time, that was exactly what you needed in order to clear World Boss and clear other game modes successfully. One of the most challenging game modes at the time, aside from World Boss, was the regular Alliance battle, and Loki was perfect for Alliance battle. You needed consistent DPS against the mobs and the Frost Beast, and you needed a guard to protect yourself against the Roar. Loki had it all. Now, that is not the case. Loki is not even in the top 10 best characters in the game anymore. And you can chalk that up to power creep, but I think that there's something more important going on. I think that Netmarble has slowly and gradually shifted what we need and what the game asks of us and what the game prioritizes out of the characters, and has shifted it away from the Loki meta, okay? And so the Loki meta, as I've stated, was consistent DPS and survivability. That's no longer the case. Of course, you still need survivability. You can't suicide in this game and succeed, but I think that there are other skills and there are other factors that and functions that characters perform that are actually more important now than they were before, and that they might as well be in the future. So those things that I think characters have to prioritize now, and what I look for in new characters, are the following: crowd control and crowd control effects, especially when they have effects that affect world bosses like Doctor Strange's Time Freeze or Enchantress's Charm. And then there's iframes. I've always spoken very highly of iframes, and it's still a very important aspect of a new character or of a character that's important to the game. And then the third one is burst DPS and self-buff potential. So self-buff potential kind of works in tandem with burst DPS. If your character doesn't have burst DPS, or they're kind of on the fringes, but they have a self-buffing attack like Shang-Chi with his third skill or something like that, then they can achieve that burst, potentially that burst damage status, and qualify for that function. So I think that Netmarble has shifted away in about a year from that old kind of Loki mentality to this new meta, this new mentality of characters like Doctor Strange. If you look at Doctor Strange's kit, he has all of the ingredients that I've listed that are most important. He self-buffs for a huge amount of time. He has multiple CCs, his most powerful being the Time Freeze, and he's got extreme burst potential with Demons of Denak. Take another character like Proxima. She has both CC and she has extreme burst damage potential. She doesn't really have iframes, but she has a lot of movement, which almost doubles for iframes. And the list goes on and on. And you can even see it in a smaller way, guys. You can see that there's very small shifts that are occurring, at least for high-level players, that you can see with high-level characters. I mean, a few months ago, Thanos was unequivocally, undoubtedly the best character in the game. Doctor Strange came in and took that away from Thanos. Why? Because Doctor Strange has something that Thanos does not have, which is burst damage. Thanos does not deal damage very, very quickly. Although Cosmic Drop does deal a lot of damage, it does so slowly, and it does so in a number of hits that can either be dodged or avoided with manual play, or negated by an obelisk with an invincibility proc on it, or an immunity on a character's skill. So if you take away that attack, suddenly Thanos is not so heavy in terms of his damage and in terms of his burst potential. Also, when Odin was introduced, although he was hated at first, a lot of people would say that Odin is better than Thanos now. And Odin is not just better than Thanos because he fits into the Extreme Alliance battle mold better. That is part of it. But if you look at Odin, he has a lot of things that Thanos doesn't have. Odin has extreme burst damage potential. He has triggerable immunity. He has iframes. He doesn't have CC, but so many of his skills hit for many attacks, so they can easily guard break and stun lock you if you get caught in those progressive, successive waves. And so there has been a shift, I believe, in the past year. The shift has been subtle. The shift has been over time. Probably the biggest time, or the biggest shift that we saw in the game, was when Sharon Rogers was introduced. Sharon Rogers totally spun the game on its head. And she did that because she combined all of the things that I'm talking about. She has extreme burst damage potential, still one of the highest burst characters around with self buffs, and she has multiple iframes. She doesn't really have CC, but that's basically the only thing she's missing, in order to make her perfect for the list. And she does arguably have CC because a lot of her skills can stun lock if they're chained successively in the right order. So Sharon Rogers was probably the first character to usher in this new shift that the game was trying to push on us. And it's not that the game is just pushing it on us with this invisible hand, guys. You have to understand that it's the game modes that necessitate certain characters being good. Loki fell out of favor, from a year ago till now because the game just doesn't suit his playstyle anymore. The game just doesn't require the things that Loki has anymore. And I can give you another example, and the other example is, where do we stand now on World Boss? Well, now for World Boss, you can take almost any character and they can probably clear World Boss, especially at Tier 2. So many characters now have a Tier 2 passive that grants them immunity, or they have a Tier 2 passive that grants them invincibility, or a Tier 2 passive that grants them a very large heal. And so it's cranked up the survivability rate of characters. It's made it easier for new players to pick up a character and say, okay, I'm going to catch up on the world bosses with this character, and they can do it easily. If you took the mold of a year ago and you tried to apply it to today, it would be hell in a handbasket trying to construct teams to clear world boss. Now, you can literally roll in with one good character that has immunity and two other Joe Schmoes. Because this one character, as long as they have max skill cooldown, can probably solo the world boss. And that goes for everyone except, of course, Infinity Thanos. He still requires a little bit more finesse and a little bit more tact because he has so much burst damage potential in his skills. But for all of the other world bosses, which is 6 out of 7 days, 30 out of 35 tries, it's kind of been, in a way, trivialized. And I'm not trying to say that if you can't beat world boss that you suck at this game, but what I'm trying to say is, when world boss was introduced, we had 0 characters with immunity. The only character that had immunity at that time was Captain America with his uniform, and that was a horrible 20-second cooldown, chance to proc. Now we have characters that on 7-second cooldowns can become immune for 6 seconds. If you can't see the difference between those two things, and if you honestly think that it's just by accident and not by design, then you're not giving the people that make this game enough credit for what they're doing. They know exactly where they're trying to position this game, and they know how to always keep the space between the high-level players and the new players to be not that far apart. If the game takes months to get into, people will quit. So they have to kind of even out the playing field as things become older. As World Boss ages, it needs to become less of a challenge, and you can't just do that by hoping your player base becomes better at the game. So you have to make the player base better at the game yourself, and you do that with things like immunity. We didn't even know that characters could have immunity before. Now it's commonplace to get immunity with a tier 2 passive or with a tier 1 passive. Hello, Medusa. So you can see that there's been a shift, that the cycle has changed, and it's reprioritized characters, and it's changed around your priorities if you're trying to build characters that are going to fit into this new style and this new position and this new niche that or I'm not saying niche, but anyways, this new method or road that Netmarble's going down. I couldn't find the word there. But that's why I don't like certain characters and why they just don't fit with what I see the game evolving into. So take, for example, Iron Fist. A lot of people say that I talk too much shit about him and that he's a great character and I just don't give him enough praise. Well, let's take a look. Iron Fist has no iframes despite having an I in his name, and he only has one burst damage skill, which is the Iron Fist. He has very little buffs, he has very little CC, and in general he just doesn't cut it because of those reasons in the current meta, in the current state of the game. Let's take another character that I shit on a lot that people say is really good. Where's my main man, Superman? Hyperion doesn't have what you need to be really good in the way that the game is going. He has a self-heal, which is great for new players, which is great for people who want to get an easy world boss win. And you know what? Hyperion was not so bad when he was first introduced because we didn't have characters like Black Bolt, Captain Marvel, and others who could just trigger immunity whenever they want. Black Panther, etc. Now that self-heal, why would I want to self-heal when I could have a triggerable immunity? What's better, being able to heal yourself or being able to make yourself totally immune to damage for 5 seconds? If I don't have this, but I have an immunity skill, I don't need to have recovery rate on my obelisk. I can have a different effect. So you can see that he's become, in a way, obsolete. He does have one high damage burst skill, but it gets easily interrupted by enemies, so it is a bit fragile, and his only iframe is a partial iframe, so it still leaves him open to damage. So as you can see, he's got very little CC, thank you for the Dimension Rift. He's got, only one burst potential skill, and he's got very few iframes. So for those reasons, guys, these characters just don't cut it because they're not in line with how I'm seeing the game evolve. And that's why I will still very highly value a character like Yellow Jacket, long iframes and great burst damage potential, and despite the fact that everybody forgot, he has a fantastic leadership for crowd control. So you can see why, hopefully, I prioritize certain characters over others, and why I generally tend to undervalue characters, because I just don't see that many characters fitting in with the mold that Netmarble is predicting for the future. So what's coming on the horizon, guys, I don't know, but what I do know is that it's probably going to be something different than what we have now, and it's probably going to in some way counter or make obsolete the things that we've come to cherish as staples of the game, like crowd control, like iframes. I'm not out to diss your favorite character. I'm not out to make you all salty dogs, but I just want you guys to try to see things a little bit from my perspective and try to understand that when I am bashing your favorite character, there is some method to my madness. So I hope that this video has been helpful to you guys. I hope that it's illuminated you and shed some light on how I go about judging and predicting character value in the game. It's largely dictated by the game modes that we have, of course, but I like to think that I can predict it pretty well based on what we have right now and what we're going to get in the future for updates. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Let me know if you think I nailed it or I missed it by a long shot, if I hit the mark or not, guys. And of course, if you like what you see, I hope to see you again tomorrow. Take care.